If you think that the Netherlands were a footballing menace during the time of Arjen Robben, Robin van Persie, and Schneider, then perhaps you're too young to remember what was actually the first golden generation of Dutch football who took the national team to its first ever World Cup final. Allow me to take you back. Between the period immediately after World War II and 1970, the Dutch national team managed to qualify for just 2 international tournaments. On both occasions, they crashed out early. By the time the 70s decade started to roll out, the world was changing rapidly. Pong arcade machines, email, floppy disks, cell phones, and VCRs weren't the only revolutionary inventions shaping pop culture. Football was about to change forever when things started to take a whole different turn in the 1970s for Dutch football. They could boast of having the best player in the world in Johan Cruyff. He was their captain and playmaker, and by 1974, he had already won 3 Ballon d'Ors. The Dutch could also boast of having the best club in the world at the time in Ajax. They won the European Cup 3 consecutive seasons between 1970 and 1973. Just how good was this Dutch side, and what was its effect on modern football? So, as you would expect, they had some of the finest players in the world at the time, and because of the club's excellent academy, most of those players were homegrown, including Johan Cruyff. Think about it. They had the best club in the world, good players, including the outright best in the world, and the final piece of the puzzle was the master tactician, the late Rinus Michels, who was awarded the prestigious FIFA Coach of the Century award in 1999 and was named the greatest manager of all time by Football France magazine in 2019. The former Ajax center forward went into coaching in 1953. By the time he took over the Netherlands team in 1974, he had already enjoyed massive success as a coach with Ajax and Barcelona, winning 5 league titles and 1 European Cup in 9 years. So, he was just the best man to lead the Flying Dutchman into a new dawn. And boy, did he do an excellent job. The Netherlands redefined football in the 70s, being led by Michels and Cruyff. They invented what is known as total football. Total football refers to a style of play in which any player can play in any position at any given time during the game. People who watched the Netherlands team of the 70s play, and even players who played against them, knew they were just different. A breath of fresh air. Carlos Alberto, the man who captained the Brazil national team to World Cup success in 1970, said that national teams have all looked the same to him since, except one team, the Netherlands national team at the 1974 World Cup. He compared their fluidity on the pitch to a carousel. They were just absolutely mesmerizing. They took the world by storm at the 1974 World Cup, knocking out defending champions Brazil and another football powerhouse, Argentina. The Flying Dutchman reached the World Cup final for the first time ever in that edition, and they were to face hosts West Germany. I should establish now that it is very difficult to beat a host nation in a World Cup final. If a host manages to make it that far, they will most likely win it. That's just how things are. The only exception was Brazil in 1950, who lost the final to Uruguay at the famous Maracanazo, which, by the way, was not a single game final, but a Final Four league. But apart from that, Uruguay won the first edition of the World Cup at home in 1930. Italy did the same in the following edition in 1934. England won it in London in 1966. Argentina won their first World Cup on home soil in 1978. And France repeated that feat 20 years later. So, the Dutchmen had an uphill climb ahead of them in their first ever World Cup final, but they started rather brilliantly, dominating the game in usual fashion. They scored in just the second minute of the game after Neeskens converted a penalty which had been won by Cruyff. As at the time they scored that goal, no West Germany player had touched the ball yet. That was how absolutely dominant they were. The Germans struggled to get back in the game, but in the 25th minute, they were offered a lifeline in the form of a penalty which they converted. And then, a few minutes to the end of the first half, Gerd Müller put the Germans in the lead, with what would become the last goal of his international career. That was enough for the hosts to be crowned world champions for the second time in their history. It was heartbreaking for the Dutch, but it was nothing to be ashamed of. They were the underdogs, and they absolutely took the world by storm in that tournament. Although Rinus Michels left the team and went back to managing Ajax after that tournament, the Netherlands kept building on the foundation that he and Cruyff had laid. They went on to qualify for the Euros for the first time ever in 1976, and they went all the way to the semi-final, where they lost to eventual winners Czechoslovakia. They beat the host Yugoslavia in the third-place playoff to clinch a bronze at their first ever Euros tournament. By the next World Cup in 1978, the entire world was looking out for Johan Cruyff and his men. However, one of football's greatest mysteries: why Johan Cruyff missed the 1978 World Cup? In 2008, Cruyff revealed that an unfortunate kidnapping attempt had 7 criminals enter his flat in Barcelona, holding him and his family at gunpoint. The attempt was stopped by authorities, but the event changed the way he prioritized things in life. He said, "The children were going to school accompanied by the police. The police slept in our house for 3 to 4 months. I was going to matches with a bodyguard." All this meant that Johan Cruyff missed the tournament in Argentina. But the Dutchmen proved that their football was indeed total. Without any of the men who were at the forefront of their re-emergence and reinvention in 1974, they still went on to do exploits at the 1978 World Cup, making it all the way to the final yet again. But their luck wasn't great, as they had to face the host nation once again. But this time around though, they took the game all the way to extra time after an 82nd minute equalizer by Nanninga. In fact, they very nearly clinched the win in the final few minutes. But Rensenbrink hit the woodwork, therefore extra time had to be played. The Dutch lost the game in extra time after 2 additional goals from the Argentinians in either half, with El Matador Mario Kempes bringing glory to his people. It was a controversial game though. The Dutch felt the Argentines were trying to rile up the home crowd by first coming out 5 minutes late and then going on to question the legality of a plaster cast that one of the Dutch players, Van der Kerkhoff, was wearing on his wrist. Because of this controversy, the Netherlands national team refused to stay back for the post-match ceremonies after they had lost. Till date, those 4 years still remain the most successful period in the history of the Netherlands national team, even though they went on to win the Euros in 1988 during Rinus Michels' second stint as a head coach. Between 1974 and 1978, they reached back-to-back World Cup finals, a feat which, until this date, has only been achieved by Brazil, Argentina, Italy, and West Germany, the 4 most successful nations in World Cup history. And in between those 2 World Cup final appearances, the Flying Dutchmen also flew all the way to a 3rd place in their first ever Euro appearance. But perhaps even more important is the legacy that the Netherlands' first golden generation left behind. They didn't just play football, they redefined the entire game. They may have not won the World Cup or Euros, but the Netherlands team of 1974 to 78 birthed serial winners who went on to win the most coveted silverware in football. The tiki-taka style the Spanish national team adopted en route to success at the 2008 and 12 Euros, as well as the World Cup victory over Netherlands in 2010, is a direct offspring of total football. It was the tiki-taka style of football that produced one of the most successful club sides, who played some of the most beautiful football we have ever seen in the modern era. Talking of Football Club Barcelona under Pep Guardiola. Even right now, Pep still plays that style of football with Manchester City, and Xavi is attempting to play that style with Barcelona. The genealogy is clear. Xavi is a student of Pep, who is a direct disciple of the captain of that Netherlands team, Johan Cruyff, the chief pioneer of total football, along with Rinus Michels. How good was that team, you ask? Well, simply put, they were so good that even though they never won any trophies, there are not many national teams in the history of football that can be said to have had such an influence on the modern game as much as the Netherlands golden generation of 1974 to 78. Which team can you say has had as much influence on the modern game as the Dutch team did? Let me know in the comment sections. I want to hear that. If you enjoy this video, please let me know by smashing the like button. Also, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the new videos like the Dutch missed on a World Cup 3 times. Thank you so much for watching. Until I see you again, keep footing, futboleros.